Hi, I'm Luis Barriga, lead game designer, World of Warcraft Legion.
And I'm Eric Malouf, senior game designer and quest designer on World of Warcraft for the Legion expansion.
So, guys, what's the reception been like? Because Legion hit, it's been out for less than a week. What are your thoughts on the fan reception?
It's been nuts. So early reviews are super positive. Concurrency, the number of players playing globally at the same time, it's really, really, really high. It's the highest it's been in several years. And basically, we're beyond stoked. And we're playing the game ourselves. And early on in the alpha, we knew we had something special, and things were really starting to come together. So I think this is going to be a very, very well-received expansion and well-beloved expansion.
Yeah, the entire team is just thrilled with the response to the expansion. There was a lot of fell blood, sweat, and tears that went into this one. We worked really hard on it, and we're really grateful that the fans have received it so well.
There's a lot of people saying the expansion is very similar to the Frozen Throne in Warcraft 3, where it's one of those expansions that's like kind of a key point in WoW history. Like, how do you feel like that is?
Sure, I think it is. I think in a way, oftentimes, right, like we keep a lot of story bullets in our back pocket because we know, like, oh yeah, we can't do that yet because it's too soon, right? Once we decide the Burning Legion is attacking Azeroth for a third time, there's a lot of kind of loose ends, a lot of stories that need to be resolved that we're waiting for that to happen. So in a way, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a very pivotal moment in the lore of World of Warcraft and kind of that continuity. And I'm familiar with some of the stuff that's coming down the line, and I can't talk to you about it yet, but I can confirm that absolutely it'll feel like that.
And the illusion drawn to the Wrath of the Lich King as well, with us releasing our second hero class, Demon Hunter. Totally get it.
So talk about the quest design system, because it's completely been overhauled. It's much more streamlined. It's easier to follow. It used to be you just kind of go to an area, you kind of grab 5 quests, and you kind of go crazy and come back and turn them all in. It's been completely overhauled now. What went into the design of that, and what did you learn from past expansions that you applied to Legion?
Well, certainly we're always, iterating on our systems. On the UI side, we're making it easier for players to complete their quests, and really frees us up in many ways to improve our storytelling. When we don't have to fully concentrate on getting you from place to place, but and the UI handling the workload on that, we can really start to get the stories going in a way that we want the players to experience it.
I just wanted to add that Eric, he actually was in charge of prototyping some of the new templates for how we were going to approach questing. And one of the things that he did in Azuna that is kind of you see it all along Legion is basically what would have been 5 quests, and 3 of those weren't really story heavy. 3 of them might have been very much like mundane tasks. We joke, get the 5 bare asses, right? Like pristine. We roll a lot of those into bonus objectives to supplement the questing experience without detracting, without adding noise. So when you see a bang, there usually is something to tell there. There's a story to tell, an NPC to interact with, and that makes it more interesting, more engaging, and easier for you to, as a player, to know where to spend your mental bucks, reading the story, etc. So I think that's been one of the things that has really added to the questing in Legion. And the other thing that also Eric helped prototype was the sort of talking heads. You've seen those in other games, and it's the sort of thing that we looked at it and it's like, is this going to feel weird in WoW, right? Like, not everyone's carrying a radio around like you will in a sci-fi game. But then the more we thought about it, it's like, hey, it's core to the Warcraft DNA. You play, the RTSs, and yep, you'd have one general talking to another one. You'd have a demon. You'd have Tichondrius taunting you as, the general of the opposing army. So it's the sort of thing that it felt right at home.
So a lot of the times when you're questing in World of Warcraft up until Legion, sometimes people would tend to get lost. Say I PvP'd a little too long and I would gain 5-6 levels, I would completely skip an area, in Lich King or Cataclysm. But now that's no more, because you guys have a nice, not necessarily nice options to quest where you want, when you want, and especially at the start of Legion, you get to choose the area you want to start in. So elaborate on that systems and how you guys got that working.
I'll let Luis get into some of the nitty-gritty details, but the new level scaling tech is great for us for a number of reasons. The first of which is that we let you have the choice of 4 different zones on the Broken Isles. Where do you want to concentrate your efforts to begin with, and what flow do you want to go through? This is great for a number of reasons, right? If I have a lot of alts, I can play it completely differently. If I've got friends that are playing and they've been playing more than me or less than me, it's really easy for us to join in together because we don't need to worry about the level disparity at all. In terms of storytelling, it frees us up quite a bit.
Yeah, so there was definitely benefits, right? And then in terms of the technical side of it, it's interesting. It's in some ways it's probably simpler than our fans would think, and in some ways it's more complicated in lots of edge cases. So there actually used to be a boss fight during, I want to say, the Lunar Festival event that had like a very crude implementation of this that inspired this technology. It was also a very clever implementation where it basically did everything with percentages based. So one of the things that we realized is like, hey, what if a mob, we just said, what would this mob deal to you in terms of percentage health if it was equal to your level, and what percentage of its health would you deal in damage? That's a simplified version. But it allowed us to prototype a feature that we were exploring with artifacts. So at first we were thinking, hey, what if artifacts allowed you to go toe-to-toe with any demon, regardless of level? That's a cool hook, the Legion's invading, and we would just scale you up, right? And so we prototyped it. We said, okay, let's do that percentage-based math, and it mostly worked. It mostly felt cool. A lot of us were scared at the times, like, well, we're going to undermine progression. You're going to be 102, and then the mobs are going to be 102 with you, and it's going to feel like a hamster wheel where you're not getting anywhere, right? And the more we tweaked it, the more we finessed it, the more we liked the big wins of it, which is, like Eric mentioned, social, less friction socially, where you can just say, hey, you and I are different levels, but we both of us haven't quested this zone, so let's go do quests in that zone together. And we really liked what that did.
So talk about I know you guys are more at game design and quests, but talk about more about the transmog system, how that's kind of just been overhauled to where here's the stuff you got. And obviously it's not backlogged to vanilla, but it backlogs a certain amount of time. And if you want to change the way you look, you just go to the Trags in-game, go to the Trags mod, select something, click it, and then you have it. Or if you don't have it, it'll give you a nice, precise quest line on how to get it, where to get it, how to obtain it.
Right. So some of it does track to classic WoW. It all depends on how. Basically, things that come from quests or came from quests, we have really good indication of where it comes from, what gives it, and whether you have completed it. So we even were able to retroactively give players some of that stuff. What gets trickier is things that predated achievements. So, for example, we don't know whether you had the Helm of Might because you could have had it and then discarded it. There was no tracking quest, no achievement. But the more going forward, right? Like we can track all those things, and it really all blended into our collection system. So we started converting things that occupied a lot of backspace in a way that was onerous into collections, right? We had the toys, we had the pets, the mounts, that sort of stuff, and we liked what it did to those systems. And basically, we looked at collections, and that was just at Transmog, and that was just another collection system waiting to happen.
So you guys finally actually were given the option to turn shoulders off for the first time in WoW since its launch. How do you feel about adding that option into the game?
I think giving players more choice along those lines, as long as we feel like it's, a good fit for the game, I think that's great. I absolutely love the new transmog system. The interface is just spot on. I know, previously I've played a lot of the superhero MMOs, for instance. So this is the kind of system that's fairly standard for them that I've wanted to see in World of Warcraft forever. And, freeing up the bag space is pretty good too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in an expansion where we focus on the fantasy, a lot of people's idea of their character in their head didn't have shoulders, right? Like I'm a wild hammer dwarf, right? And we wanted to support that. So we already had pretty minimalistic chest pieces, pretty minimalistic shoe options. but shoulders was one thing that we kind of had, like, we had the smaller pauldrons, but we wanted to have just that option of like, hey, I'm just the orc from the cinematic, I'm the Wildhammer dwarf in my from Heroes of the Storm, and those are just like, very, you want to show off your tattoos, you just want to have that look, and we want to support that in an expansion where we're focusing on letting you be that character that you picked.
So going into the story mode, as a quest designer, you have to focus on story stuff. Talk about like what time travel opens up for you, because Draenor had so much time travel in it. Everything kind of got askewed, and now with Legion, spoilers, Vojan's dead, Varian's dead. Could we possibly see them in the future for some like time-altering paradox after Gul'dan is destroyed?
Well, I think anything's possible. Yeah, I think it's interesting how we decide to utilize these kinds of tools in our disposal to tell stories. I actually really loved the way that we handled the time travel parallel Draenor. It gave us the opportunity to really explore a lot of what ifs for our own Draenor, which turned into Outland. It gave us the opportunity to really get to know those orc clans, in a way that we just didn't really get to explore them during Burning Crusade.
Yeah, sure. And then to add to that a little bit, I feel that time travel, as difficult as it is to kind of account for all the moving pieces in it, it is something that's kind of integral to, like, we have the Bronze Dragonflight and the Caverns of Time and all that. So I think it's something that's going to be something that we keep using whenever it feels like it's a cool flashback moment or something that we want to tell. At the same time, right, it is something that's inherently problematic in some cases to deal with, and so I think it's something we'll use sparingly. But it's something that's part of the World of Warcraft lore, and we can use whenever we need to.
Plus, I think it was great because it got us Gul'dan back.
The question is, can Illidan eventually dual wield Skulls of Gul'dan? That's what I want to know.
I know, can't we were getting to time travel. That's a mage question. They'll talk about time travel, then he'll talk about time travel, then we'll all be talking about time travel, nothing will ever get done. So my last question is, a lot of people like myself, I never got to experience like the Lich King raid or see Geno Rigomar to free it. But now it seems so much more reachable for players like me with Legion. I feel like I can experience the whole story, not get left behind, and have to go back when I'm level 110 to do a level 90 raid by myself. What goes into designing something like that? So you're giving people the challenge, but at the same time, people like me can experience the end of the story.
So one of the things that's really cool in Legion is that every zone has a theme and a story, and the zones build up the dungeons in a way that's very reminiscent of Classic, and it's in a similar way, right? Those raids that we have, they're not disjointed, and we know that we kind of put out the promise to players like, hey, Val'sharah is all about druids versus the Nightmare, and then there's going to be a raid that pays it off. So we know that we're going to have to do a tier of LFR or a tier of normal rating that we want to be pretty accessible. One of the things that will really help us out in Legion is that we have so many influxes of different gear, is that for players that maybe they don't have a steady raid group, or maybe that's not their thing, they're not really into min-maxing, or they want to play their character in with a specific build because of the fantasy that's not geared as much to min-maxing their DPS, they will eventually be able to get enough gear to let them play at a competitive level. Maybe not as much as someone who min-maxes everything would, but they'll be able to experience those things as well.